in today's video, we're going to go through the Detroit Lions roster, and we're going to go through players who have contributed to the football team throughout the years, one being a starter, and who has some bad news coming their way for this up-and-coming season. Why is that? Because the Lions upgraded the roster, and it affects players who's been on this team for some time. And we're just going to go through some of the players here, and obviously the first one you can tell is Mr. Graham Glasgow. And why do I have him as a player that's potential bad news for him? Well, because the Detroit Lions went all out on the offensive line to get younger this season, with the talent adding of Tate Ratledge in the draft, and Miles Frazier in the draft, back-to-back interior lineman. Koby Sorsdale re-signed in free agency, and if you go through the offensive line, you just see all these players here: Nathan Moody, Kingsley Guakin, Jamarco Jones, Giovanni Manu, Christian Mahogany, Michael Neese, Dan Skipper, Colby Sorsdale. There is a lot of players on this offensive line that's going to be affected, one being Graham Glasgow. Now, why do I think that? Well, because he's a little bit older too, folks. Graham Glasgow is 32 years old, and Brad Holmes spoke that he would like to get younger. Now, he specifically talked about the wide receiver position. We like to get younger. We like to get younger. He has talked out through his tenure since he's been here about getting younger on every position. That's what he likes to do. So 32 years old, Graham Glasgow. He's been on this team, for many times, been on other teams like the Denver. He came back to Detroit, but it's a little different story right now for him. Why is that? Well, look at his cap. He's got a lot of cap this year, $7.4 million in cap space. That's a lot of money for a guard, considering the players that we have. Next year, $8.4 million in cap space. The Lions released Za'Darius Smith via cap. The Lions very well could do the same thing to Graham Glasgow with all these players, especially, look, if Miles Frazier and the new players that we had last year, Christian Mahogany, Giovanni Manu, we fully expect Tate Ratledge to do good. He's already, in my opinion, is going to be a starter. So, and he's playing on the interior as well as center. It spells a lot of doom and gloom for me for Graham Glasgow. The Lions could easily walk away from that. Folks, you want to subscribe to the channel. Why is that? Because it's the cool thing to do now. It's the new trend to subscribe to my channel. Everybody's wanting to do it. Just go ahead and do that. Let's get to another player I think is going to be affected, not released this year or trade or anything like that, but his playing time could be affected this year, and this could be last year, and that is my guy, Tim Patrick. With the trade up with Isaac Tesla, giving up 2 third-round picks, and the fact that Brad Holmes absolutely loves Tesla, he said that was his favorite wide receiver in the draft, Tim Patrick could be losing playing time this year, especially when Tesla is developing. He gets better throughout, each week. We get, throughout the season. That could reduce playing time for Tim Patrick. It very well could, because Tesla is a player that the Lions invested a lot into, a player that they clearly feel is the future of this football team. And you look at Tim Patrick, he's in his 30s, 1 year on the deal. I could see him, this being his last year in Detroit and his playing time getting cut 100%. And it's not because of him, in all honesty. I think it's because of Tesla. It's just because he has a higher ceiling. And so once he gets up to speed, the Lions will probably utilize him a little bit more. But, man, Tim Patrick's awesome. He's not like he's a bad player at all. So he's going to be on this team for sure this year. There's no doubt about it. He's going to get his playing time, and we want him to get his playing time because he is a sound player. He is a good player, and he brings a lot of depth to the locker room. And there's no reason to really push Tesla to get out there as fast as humanly possible because our depth is so good at wide receiver. This is not the first year of Brad Holmes where he had to throw St. Brown out there pretty quickly, right? This is a different situation. You got St. Brown now, number one. You got Jamison Williams. He's basically number one. You got Tim Patrick. He's a number 3. You got Khalif Raymond. He's a number 4. So Tesla could just come in here. He can take his time in developing, and getting his feet wet, and he can play the slot as well, but they would like to ideally for him to be on the outside, right? That size and speed, the 4'4", 6'4". They like that size, but they don't need to jump to it quickly because we have our guy Tim Patrick, because we have a player that understands this offense, that has really good hands. He's not the fastest guy in the world, as you can see him there, but his route run, he's extremely crisp. And that's what makes him special. And he can get separation. We've seen it multiple times. I mean, when you're that's your number 3, that's going to occur because he's so big. So the Lions are in a great situation at this wide receiver position. And Patrick Starr could lose some playing time. Again, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You will be really cool if you do so. Everybody is doing it. That's what the rumors around the mill is. Subscribe to the channel. Another player that I think is doom and gloom for this year, that's Brodric Martin. Unlike Tim Patrick, where I think Tim Patrick's going to produce this year, I don't think that's the case with Martin. He's on his very last leg. The Lions went out of their way to fix the interior defensive line with Tyleik Williams, bringing in Roy Lopez and Mekhi Wingo from last year. There was high hopes on him. What does that mean? You're running out of room. And I was told last year in season, Brodric Martin probably won't be making the 53-man roster. And after free agency and after the draft, we know that now to be the case. There's other players that they would like to have right on, especially when Liam McNeil comes back, right? DJ Reader, Levi Nwuzurike, Joshua Pascal sometimes plays on the interior. They got players. They like Miles Adams too. So Brodric Martin, this could be it from him with the Detroit Lions. This is very bad news for him for this offseason. If he likes working for a Detroit Lion, he's a walking cut man. That's what I'm saying right now. You know, they said the dead man walking. He's a cut man walking right now. Maybe the Lions could, when they do cut downs, potential, right, if they wanted to maybe do like a trade, a player swap, something like that for a position maybe we need a better at edge position or something like that. Another team needs interior. You do a player swap or like a 7th-round conditional draft pick. You're not going to get a lot for him. But Brodric Martin most definitely is on his last leg in Detroit. And this offseason has been bad for him. Next player on my list, so I think is cut man walking here. That's Koby Sorsdale. We talked about the defensive line. Talked a little bit about the interior. And not just the interior of the offensive line, but he's played tackle as well. Lions are great. Start at tackles, right? We're good there. Taylor, Decker, Panay, Sewell, Giovanni Manu, Dan Skipper. Right now, if you look at the depth chart, Koby Sorsdale's number 3. Behind Skip. Manu. They like Jamarco Jones a little bit more. Netane Muti. Where is a spot for him? He doesn't have a spot at tackle. He doesn't have a spot on the interior. We drafted Ratledge Frazier. Where's a spot for him? He hasn't done anything yet for the Lions on this offensive line. He's been, what's the word that we can say when we think of Koby Sorsdale? Cheeks. He hasn't developed. And I don't blame the coaching staff for the lack of development for both Brodric Martin and Koby Sorsdale. I do 100% believe that this coaching staff gets the best of all of their players. And that really spelled bad news for Sorsdale. Because if you're still not doing good, and you have this coaching staff with Hank, with Fraley, the man, the myth, the legend, that's not good for you. But you know what's good for me? Being cool. So subscribe to the channel. That is 100% facts. You will be cool. There's a lot of other players that's going to get affected when you look at this, but there's no really necessary need to consistently, make more graphics for this. But you can look at Ennis Rakestraw. Now, I love Ennis Rakestraw. I'd love for him to get some playing time. He's still going to be behind Amik Robertson, and he's developing, but it was more of an injury prone. I'm not worried about him. I'm excited to see what he can do this year. Hopefully he gets some playing time this year, but he's just got to stay healthy, right? It's all about the health for him, and just getting developed. You look at the edge position, I think they're pretty good. You look at the linebacker position, they're good there. I think Shane Zylstra could be another player that has to worry about his position that's been on this team for some time. We can always put Craig Reynolds on there, but the Lions didn't pick up any running backs in the draft. They didn't. They got some undrafted guys, but I think Craig Reynolds will be fine for this football team. A player who we've seen before. Khalif Raymond, I think he's fine this year for sure. He'll be good to go for this year. Now, we have to wait and see after this year. I think this could be his last year in Detroit. He's had some injuries as well. He's getting a little bit older. And obviously the Lions, they picked up some wide receivers in the draft and as undrafted. But I think he's good for this year. For Detroit, they will be fine. The Lions, they've done pretty good in the roster, just going through it. So those are the ones that I would say I would be concerned about that you've seen before on this football team of players that the Lions, who's been on this team, that they have to worry about is more the Graham Glasgows, the Brodric Martins, the Koby Sorsdales, Tim Patrick, Justin, and playing time for this year. Nothing more than that because he's going to be on the field. But what is players that you identify? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. With that said, folks, adios.